Hello and welcome to a new episode of WHU Inside Business. We are here today with Professor Dr. Jochen Maas, who has been the head and general manager of research and development at Sanofi in Germany for 12 years. Thank you for being here, Mr. Maas.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.
So to begin with, I would like to ask what fueled your interest in the pharmaceutical industry and in pharmacokinetics early on in your career, and what ultimately made you choose R&D as a focus?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. At the end, I was always interested in science. And if you are interested in science, you have normally two opportunities. The first one is to do an academic career, and the other one is to enter into industry and to try to make an industry career. And what made me to follow the second way was the situation that in an academic career I have the opportunity to add new knowledge, but not a really new innovation. What is the difference? I think if you are in an academic environment, very often the end of your activities is in an optimal way a nature paper. And this is an increase of knowledge, no doubt about it. But the end in the industrial research, particularly in pharmaceutical research, is an innovation for the patient, a new drug for the patient. It does not end in an increase of knowledge. We have it as an intermediate step, but at the end, it's a real product, a drug for the patient, which is a real innovation. Only increase of knowledge is no innovation.
Those are some very interesting points on innovation you mentioned. So maybe what are some recent developments or breakthroughs in the pharmaceutical industry that you find particularly interesting?
I think three approaches are very interesting for me at the moment, and they are overlapping each other. They are not completely separated from each other. The first one is individualized medicine. We will come more and more to a situation that each patient is treated or will be treated individually, not the, let me say, big blockbusters for millions of patients, but a very stratified or even individualized treatment of the patient. The second point is gene therapy. Gene therapy will play an important role, and gene therapy very often is already individualized. And the third one is the integration of artificial intelligence into science. Why it is so important also in the pharmaceutical business, I can give you one example. We try to use artificial intelligence to predict the mutations of a tumor, to have already a combination of drugs available if the tumor escapes the former treatment and we have a new treatment already available before the modification of the tumor really occurs. And this would give us hopefully the opportunity to make cancer to a chronic disease and not longer to a deadly disease.
Yeah, so you just mentioned artificial intelligence. And talking about that, maybe what role do you think other emerging technologies play in this industry, and how can they also drive the innovation? So in what way is AI and also other emerging technologies implemented?
I think the example of IA I already gave in my last response, and IA is involved in the whole value chain of the pharmaceutical industry. Today we design drugs with artificial intelligence. We optimize drugs regarding pharmacokinetics, safety, etc., using artificial intelligence. We try to predict the clinical situation only having preclinical data in mice and in vitro data in hand. We really are able to improve clinical studies considerably by predicting specific doses which will be or which will have the highest efficacy, etc. This means IA will have a completely increased meaningfulness in the future. Gene therapy will be a future as well. Unfortunately, More than 94% of all studies are done in China and in the US. We are in a difficult situation in Europe at the moment, but it will be one interesting point as well. And the third point is not so much a treatment point, it's a diagnostic point. We will see more and more liquid biopsies. This means more and more markers in the blood, which will be able to have an exact diagnosis of a disease or to predict the course of the disease after a treatment. These are the most important innovations for me.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. And do you also think that telemedicine and remote patient monitoring are going to play an increasing role?
I'm sure that, they will play an increasing role. We have some examples in the European countries. Look at Norway. More than 20% of the treatments are already done via medicine, and from my point of via telemedicine. And from my point of view, it's a benefit on the one hand for the patient, because in telemedicine the physician has more time for the individual patient than in the practice. It will be an advantage for the physician as well. And at the end, it will be an advantage for the healthcare system per se, because it's definitely less expensive than our classical system.
That sounds very promising. So in light of the recent pandemic that we basically came out of just recently, what changes or adaptations have you made to your R&D process and strategies, and will they have a lasting impact on the industry?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think at the end we learned in the pandemic that we were able to develop a vaccine within 11 months and to bring it to the market. The normal time course to develop a vaccine and to bring it on the market is 7 to 9 years. In the pandemic, we were able to do it in 11 months. Why? Because all players in this area, and these include academic research, industrial research, production, authorities, politics, all of them worked very, very closely together to make it at the end really possible to have it within 11 months. And of course, we try to move this experience into the normal pharmaceutical life, because normally our value chain is 10 to 15 years for a new drug. And I can tell you the oncology patient would also be happy if we would need only 5 years and not 10 to 15 years for a new drug. Unfortunately, some things we were able to have already in place also in our new fields, but some areas fell back after the pandemic situation. Politics is reacting slower than expected. Authorities are a little bit slower than in a crisis situation. Therefore, I'm wondering again and again, why do we need a crisis to become faster? We should be able to make it also without a crisis.
Yeah, since you just talked about the authorities, we also had a question concerning that. Do you believe that in Germany the regulatory and policy framework allow for innovation, or do you think that there need to be changes? As we've seen in the crises, all of a sudden the government reacted more quickly than usual, which you just also mentioned.
I think from an authority point of view, there is a big learning. Authorities are doing now rolling reviews, which was a new experience in the pandemic situation. On the other hand, what is a mess for a country like Germany is our digital approach. I give you one example. Sweden has the electronic insurance card since 1983. This is 40 years. We were not able to have it until today. The first discussions in Germany started in 20 years ago, 2003, and we were not able to make it until today. And such a behavior, such a bureaucracy is a mess for a country like Germany. And we have to change it immediately, from my point of view. Okay,
that sounds very reasonable. And a last question, since of course during the pandemic or other crises, it's always important to also keep the people and the public updated. What steps do you think can be taken to bridge that gap between scientific research and public understanding, particularly when it comes to complex topics like new drugs?
This is an extremely important question. And I think we had also in this area a lesson learned from the pandemic situation. It was the first time that scientists were in the media from the beginning. Many people did not know that there is a discipline called virology. But in the first 3 months, I think each and every virologist in Germany was in any talk show or something like that. This was interesting because at the beginning, everybody believed the virologists. But after 3 months, people recognized they do not have always identical statements, which is the normal way to do science. You do not have to have a fixed opinion at the beginning. You have to learn during the pandemic process. And unfortunately, the next step in the pandemic situation was a skepticism against science. And this, from my point of view, is not the right way. Therefore, we as scientists have to be aware that we have to leave the ivory tower on the one hand. We have to explain to the public each and every detail what we are doing, and we have to explain it in a way that everybody understands it. And the important point is, if we are not able to convince the majority of our population about new scientific approaches, the classical situation in Germany is it will be rejected. In Germany, and this is my experience of 30 years, the glass is never half full, it's always half empty. And therefore, to make people aware that, as an example, we would not have one vaccine until today without gene technology. This is important and this has to be done, and we have to open ourselves from a scientific point of view. But in general, we need a broad broad society consensus about the new approaches. And this cannot be done by scientists only. We need for this ethical experts, we need perhaps theological experts, we need journalists, we need politicians. We have to work together to convince people that with a new technology, the glass can also be half full and not always half empty.
All right, thank you. I think that is a great closing word. Thank you for taking the time. It has been very interesting. And thank you also to the viewers of WHU Inside Business. And we will see you in the next episode.